Don't worry about this witness, T.
Over. O troviamo.
Exactly.
You don't even know what he said.
Fuck you, I did too.
What then?
I understood.
O troviamo, what's it mean?
It means, sit on this, cocksucker.
5 minutes away from the can for the rest of my fucking life, and I'm laughing.
You got it, Skip. You got it.
Yeah, that's right. You gotta find ways to laugh, even when you're facing impending doom. Welcome, my friends, to Cut to Black, a Sopranos sit down. I am Jim Scampoli.
I am Jacob Burrows, and we are indeed here. Season 2, Episode 10, Bust Out, which is something we all know. We all watched Goodfellas. We all know about busting out and how you get your dirty claws in a business and then just bust a move.
Yes, yeah, and actually, it's a good call on the Goodfellas because much like in Goodfellas, when we see them busting out a business and then we see in the background them enjoying the fruits of their labor, they do that throughout this episode as we see many a red cooler and what are they drinking?
Ramlösa, Swedish water. It's literally just water. I don't know why they're so excited, but yes, they're like, oh, I got a sweet deal on this Ramlösa, which is like tap water, but good job.
This episode was written by Frank Ranzulli, Robin Green, and Mitchell Burgess, and it was directed by John Patterson. All those names are very familiar and names we've heard before and names we will hear again.
Yes, and it was sponsored by Ramlösa Incorporated, a Swedish corporation. I cannot believe how great product placement they have. It almost makes me wonder, like, HBO, are you getting product placement? I would assume not, because you wouldn't put Ramlösa in there. It's just water. That's their tagline, basically.
Is that really just their tagline? It's just water?
No, but it should be, because it is. I drink it. It's water. That's my commercial for it.
It sounds good, though. It's bottled in Sweden.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, ooh, interesting.
Yes. Swedish spring water. Yes.
This episode opens up with people we don't know. We see a man talking to the police, and he picks out. Well, I guess it opens up technically with a picture of Tony, like a mugshot or something. And man is identifying Tony as he saw him near the scene of the crime where Matthew Bevilacqua was lit up by Tony and Big Pussy last episode. And I think he even has like a cheesy line like, I'm just so sick of crime.
Yes. It felt like even the cops are like, oh yeah, we are too. Tell us more about who you saw. Because he's there like, he gives off this good Samaritan vibe, which is annoying and not just, I mean, I guess mostly because we're so on Tony's side that we're like, who's this rat? Even though clearly Tony just murdered someone for, I guess it was justified. But yeah.
Yeah, and then we see Tony at the carousel in the mall, I guess, because usually he's meeting Richie in the mall. It looks like there's some stores around, and there's a little kid yelling for his mommy, and Tony's having flashes to poor young Matthew Bevilacqua, who's also screaming for his mommy as Tony lit him up with his gun. And I think then there's like Tony goes to the missing kid, whose mother quickly scoops him up. And Tony tries to like make a little small talk, and she kind of scoffs at him like he's a piece of shit. He was trying to help.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, Richie is all annoyed about trash pickup again, giving us one of these glimpse into the bureaucracy and the percentages that goes into running a mob family. Where this guy's charging me this for this, but I'm charging them that for that. He just wants a rate. And Tony says, I'll see what he says. And Richie points out that, you do own part of the company. I don't know which company they're talking about, but yeah.
Waste management. They're talking about, Barone Sanitation, which I believe Tony kind of took over the chair or whatever, the percentage from Junior. Mm-hmm. Tony does use Junior's line here. He tries to. It's like a thing we see Tony do. I don't think he messes up the line, though. Like, usually he'll get a line from Melfi and he messes it up. But he uses Junior's line about Olivia, where he's like, you're like an old woman with a Virginia ham under your arm, like crying that you don't have any bread. And then Richie's like, what?
He lifts lines from Melfi so often that I was like, that's familiar. I must have heard that somewhere. I just assumed it was Melfi, but then thinking about it, I'm an idiot. She would never say that. Junior would definitely say that though. So yeah, you're right. He's incorporating Junior's wisdom even now.
But and also, I mean, it's a nice way to show that, like, yeah, Richie's like annoyed about something, but he's not being unreasonable here. I mean, maybe we don't know the specifics, but he's not like giving Tony shit necessarily like he usually does, where he's kind of really pushing it. He's just annoyed about this money and he wants help. And he's like, oh, yeah, of course you're going to help if it'll help you, basically.
Richie's been towing the line fairly well through most of the season. I mean, there was Beansy, of course, the ramp, but even since the jacket, it's been, pretty chilled, even if he brings it up this episode. And I'm like, oh, I was wrong. He's old school. He's loyal. But then you got Janice in there.
Yeah, you got Janice. So yeah. Then we cut back into Carmilla, who's still reading Memoirs of a Geisha. I believe she's reading the previous episode as well. And Tony talks about how he wants to spend some time with AJ. And I guess he's getting, I mean, it's probably a little runoff from last episode where he was kind of a piece of shit to him. Plus, of course, thinking about this kid he killed. And also, I think the line is said a few times in this episode. He fell in with the wrong crowd, and not necessarily like by characters that hear each other saying it, but it's like the police say it about Bevilacqua, and then Tony's saying it here about AJ. He wants to toughen him up, make sure he doesn't fall in with the wrong crowd. And I think even Carmella's being a little sarcastic about it. And, she apologizes, and, Tony's on a mission to bond with his son.
I mean, his son did smoke weed at his confirmation, so his fears are, they're justified. Even if AJ won't turn into a mobster, he might turn into some weird hippie, and we wouldn't want that. That's probably what he means by the wrong crowd, because he is the wrong crowd. So the wrong crowd is probably, oh, I don't want him to become a fucking banker or something.
And then we check back in with Davy's sporting goods store. I think it's like Ramsey's Sports or something like that. And it's nice to see the things are still going on for good old Davy, the degenerate gambler. They're ordering coolers, and we see the water come in. They're making sure they get subs being charged to the game, as you will. Something about airline tickets they're going to be charging to the business. And there's really nothing Davey can do. Like what he even says, like, oh, they got a deal on the blue. And Richie's like, no, fuck that. They ain't getting paid anyways. We want the red.
Yes. And it's really like how, I guess airline tickets are going to be expensive, but it's like these coolers. And I don't know how many you got. There's like an infinity of them in the episode. But the subs, the water, I guess if you get it from Sweden, from the spring source, it will cost a bit more. But it's like we're just picking little bits and pieces. They're literally like, well, not literally. They're figuratively picking at the corpse of this business already, trying to get as much meat off as possible. And this is also Richie and Tony kind of palling around and doing business together, which we haven't seen as much.
Yes, they have a nice common, I guess I don't want to say enemy, but, a common foil here where they can kind of have some fun while they're, bleeding this company dry. Then we see Tony and AJ sharing a little time at the pool. AJ's scared of a spider that he might have saw, and his belly flop like jump into the pool when he thinks that Tony has the spider is great. And then the police show up, and I think Tony has to talk to his maid, and he's like, did you let him in the house? And he's like, warrant. How do you say it in Polish?
Yeah.
You don't let him in the house. What's wrong with you?
And they want him to come in. It's just a courtesy call. They could have called on the phone, but it's a courtesy in-person call to make him come down to the station. Just have a little chat. No problem. Just have a chat about Bevilacqua.
Yeah, just a few questions. I need to know what's going on with this Matthew Bevilacqua kid. Yeah. And then we kind of cut in with Big Pussy and his handler, who is starting to put things together that because there was a stocky accomplice or something like that.
Yeah, like a husky accomplice or something, which he definitely didn't say in that scene earlier. Maybe it was later, but still.
And he's starting to put things together. Like, what did we talk about? No violence. No.
Which he's doing. He's very, very bad handler if he thinks there's no violence. I mean, already. And I mean, you did bring this up last episode of like, will it help that he shot for second or whatever? And as I said, he's just lying all the time about everything to his handler anyway, and that's certainly what he tries to do here. But then he also sneaks in like, just supposedly, if I did it, don't you think that would be a good thing?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, no, you idiot! I need you to get a wire on right now and
Yeah,
get
I
him
want
to,
Tony-
get him on tape.
Yeah, we want Tony on tape talking about the Bevilacqua hit.
Because it's like the thing is they're always looking for like the big thing. They don't want to put someone away for like a month. You want him to get the big thing. And he did murder, and they say it in the episode, murder in aid of racketeering. That's 20 to life. So hey, pussy, if you're gonna do your job, now's the time to do it. Otherwise, get off the pot.
Yeah, if there's going to be a time to take down Tony, this is it. Although it does, I guess, since he's in the scenario, it puts him at risk as well.
Yeah.
And then Tony's talking to his lawyer. They're kind of going over the options, and the lawyer's saying like, "You didn't say you'd go down there, would you?" And of course, Tony's too smart for that. They're kind of just putting some feelers out, trying to lock him into a story so they can get him under questioning in the court and maybe poke some holes there. It's something I like the lawyer. It's like, this is just everyday bullshit. I'm a mob lawyer. I got this under control. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, you get some real Better Call Saul vibes here. I'm like, I want to see this show about this lawyer hanging out, smoking cigars, solving problems. He's got even this thing of like leaving a nest egg and then you pay it out. Also very sort of Breaking Bad, which is my one reference for criminal lawyer behavior. Because all the lawyer shows are like, we got to do the justice. Fuck that. Hey, join our Better Call Saul podcast coming soon. It's called It's All Good, Man. That's what we settled on, right? I like it.
I think that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah.
Then we catch up. There's a lot of scene like this. It's not that this episode bounces around, but it's a lot of short scenes. So
yeah,
I mean, they're all setting up things. And they're all connected. But we got Carmilla and her friends. I don't know what is this, like a book club or something they're doing, or some sort of like housewife hangout.
Well, they have got all these papers. They seem kind of stressed. They're taking notes. I don't know exactly, but I don't think it's a book club because then there would be more wine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They'll dance, scavenger hunt, and the liquor stores will be closed, is a line they say.
Okay. Yeah. They're setting up some sort of event for the kids. And they want to keep them out late. Okay. And then Davy's wife's there, who's friends with Carmilla. And it's interesting enough that she'd even be on this good of terms. But I guess it kind of speaks more to David's history, and that this is not the first time he's fucked up as far as gambling's concerned. So, and I guess to her, the car, it's kind of a big deal, but he's done worse. And like, it's not like he gambled the business away. I mean, it's in my own name, thank God. And then Carmilla gets to meet her brother Vic, and the sparks are flying.
Yeah, immediately, just on the first shot of him, like, ooh, hello. Going totally against. I guess I was wrong last episode when I totally, I was pretty mean towards Carmilla and her looks. But hey, this guy disagrees. He's got sparks flying from his eyes. He's got rainbows shooting out of his ears. He's really into it.
And it's such a great soap opera-y angle for this character because he's the good businessman who's like a young widower. Yeah, because his wife passed away from cancer. So he's not only is he smoldering and attractive, but he's also kind of broken, and he could be fixed and consoled and brought back to the real world.
Yeah, he's probably the only like good guy, blue collar, regular fella we got on the show, right? I don't know we've ever had one.
Yeah. And then, when they go out to the car, Vic's sister, I don't know her character's name. She makes the comment,
maybe.
She makes the comment like, see that ring probably came off a dead person's finger. You don't want to mess with that. That's Tony Soprano's wife. Like, so even any of the kind of niceties, it's like, she's Carmilla Soprano. No one really likes her.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that, but hey, there's always that thrill though. It probably came off a dead person's finger, and he's not like, oh, I'll stay away from that. He's like, oh, interesting.
And then we have a hilarious scene of David on his pool table, like with a gun in his mouth, ready to commit suicide, but he hears the car pull up, so he has to quickly hide it, much like a kid who's almost caught smoking weed or something. and he even uses that to be a jerk to his wife because she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Fixing a fucking light bulb," because he's going through
Yeah.
all kinds of shit right now. And she's like, "All right, well, Jesus, you're the one that's always complaining about scratching the felt." And he's like, "The
Yes.
light's flashing off the cue ball," like he's being a maniac.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, how many revolvers does it take to change a light bulb? I guess more than one, because he didn't change it.
Yeah.
So Janice and Richie are
Putting
going
the
at
guns
it.
to the head. Yeah.
Yeah, talking exactly. And that's interesting. Little bit of gunplay. As we move the camera around to slowly reveal it. But I guess that's just every day for them. That's just bread and butter of what sexual intercourse is. But you know what's not bread and butter? It's when she starts talking about, oh, you should take out my brother. Oh, it's all a fantasy though. But yeah, you should like take these specific steps to become the new boss. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yep. You're the boss. You're the best. It should be you. Well, and it's interesting because I don't think it's really spelled out. Whose kink is it? It's clearly Janice that wants it, right? Or is it a Richie thing where he's like, we need the gun involved?
I've turned around on Richie. He's like he's a real down to earth kind of guy in my book right now, which makes no sense given where we were earlier in the season. But yeah, I'll go with you. I wouldn't put it past Janice. I mean, she does say she's attracted to powerful men. What's more powerful than a man with a gun?
I mean, it's, as the Tao says, hold a gun to your girlfriend while you look everyone behind.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I
exactly.
guess I could totally see it because I think when I originally watched this, I just assumed it was a weird Richie thing because he's a weirdo. But like as they're playing it out now, you're right. Like Richie's coming off as more kind of just a regular mafia guy, and this is just another step of manipulation from Janice to try to make it seem like he's a tough guy or something. But either way, he gives his classic Richie response of like, "I gotta be loyal. I'm old school, Janice,"
Mhm.
and she just keeps kind of pushing him, talking about how Uncle Junior's got friends, he's got connections. You should do this. And then in a hilarious moment, Livia Soprano comes like motorizing down the stairs, asks if they're smoking weed.
Which they are,
Yeah.
by the way, of course. Gotta get that in there. So yes, that is true. Speaking of sensual moments, Carmilla wakes up from a dream, and there's no one in her bed with her. Another short scene.
I like how they do this because you could totally you could play out the scene and have her like hooking up with this guy and then do the fake out where it's a dream.
Oh
And
yeah,
most of the time you'd be tempted to do that because you could at least play it out and trick the audience for a moment. Then she wakes up and it's a dream. But no, it just kind of focuses on her and it's clear what's going on. She's having this dream. And yeah, she just kind of wakes up from it herself. We fill in the blanks ourselves. And yeah, of course, Tony's not there, which adds even more insult to injury for the like how Tony looks in Carmilla's mind.
yeah. It's that's what makes it a real scene, even though it's I don't know 20 seconds. Because if she wakes up and Tony's there, there's no progression, there's no change. She wakes up from this scene or from this dream, I should say, and is probably feeling guilty for a second. And she looks over and he's not there. That propels her further towards what happens later. So even though it's so short, it's still like efficient.
Yep, exactly. And then we're back at the sporting goods store. Big Pussy and Tony are there, and Paulie comes in with Furio, and they got some information on what's going on, why the cops want to talk to him. We get news that there's an eyeball witness, as Paulie calls it, and Furio tells him that maybe he should lamb chop it. Just a nice little, foreigners get phrases wrong joke to
Yeah.
sneak in real quick. And it is interesting because I mean, I guess it's the whole thing. Like Tony, I think they were even getting into this in season one. I mean, the whole thing with Tony is he doesn't have to do shit like this. He's not supposed to be getting his hands
Yep.
dirty, as it were.
Yep.
And since he did like get this happiness, like he went to kill this kid for the revenge, and kind of we talked about how happy he was after, and now it's coming to bite him in the ass, and he's like really freaking out.
Yeah, and he's gonna have to go to Elvis Town, where there are no Jews or Italians. Anywhere there are no Jews or Italians, I guess. And David comes out like, "Oh, I got this bill," and Tony gets really mad at him, and then what does he say after he chases him away like get back in your hole?
Get
But
the
then
fuck back in your fucking hole. And oh yeah, oh David, I'm sorry.
yeah, what does he say exactly? Because it's kind of like you're doing good or whatever. Because it's obvious he's really upset. I do like this scene. We get a lot of stuff. Like Big Pussy, he's like, "Oh yeah, I keep a suitcase in my trunk," and Polly Walnut's like, "Yeah, tell us about it."
Yeah,
He's like, "Hey!"
yeah, I think Big Pussy's response is a great line. He goes, "Yeah, bygones are never bygones around." Because yeah, no one's gonna let him forget it, and it is such a great response from Polly though, because it's like, yeah, we know you fucking disappeared for like a year.
Yeah, and it ends with what we had in the intro of the podcast, I think, of him saying the line, and Tony's there kind of laughing because he doesn't know. You gotta though, Skip.
Yep, yeah, you gotta have you gotta find the silver lining somewhere. Sit on this cocksucker. I love that they all think that's hilarious. That he just picks up a fucking pole or something, and he's like, "Sit on this cocksucker," and they're all cracking up. It's a great moment for them all.
So, Carmilla has dinner or lunch with Christine, David's wife, and they make a big hoopla about this omelette again. And I'm really at this point like, there's going to be a big reveal about where the omelette is from. It's like, no, there isn't. There's no like, it doesn't happen. It's just, hey, I want to give you this special menu with this delicious water. And I'm
it's
like,
just a
how
nice
much did they pay?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a nice goof because that's how this is all working out. Tony gets these cases of water, or his crew gets it, and they just sell it for pennies on the dollar. And even good Artie Bucco, who Charmaine tries to keep in line, he's going to partake a little bit.
And this is where we find out that her brother is a widower and all of that. Oh, childless. She had a hostile womb, you know. So she really liked his wife, I guess.
Well, it's even interesting the way she's kind of being open about it, and even like Davy's wife, like how they're just kind of, she's like, oh yeah, like, you know, having that dream about him. Like it's this weird, like gossipy girl version of it, and no real threat of this mob boss Tony Soprano.
Yes. So continuing his quest to hang out with AJ, probably propelled by the fact that I'm doing 20 to life for going on the lamb chop. I got you this fishing rod you wanted. Yeah, you got a great deal on it. Do we see it come into the shop? I think so.
I think
maybe
we must. I think probably in the beginning when they're just moving stuff around a lot. I bet you we see it.
Yeah. So he wants to he wants them to go fishing and to go see a movie, get some pizza. And AJ's got plans. He's doing a social thing. Despite it all, he is a social creature and something like a social butterfly. I mean, he hangs out with the weed kids. He got hammered off communion wine that one time. AJ's probably surprisingly cool.
Yeah, he's a cool kid. It's all because he beat up that tall kid. The kid was like twice his size. So yeah, then it kind of segues right into Melfi and Tony. He's kind of talking about, he's complaining because, you know, it's a real like moment. It feels like for a parent where, you know, your kids become their own person and, you know, they don't always want to hang out with you. And especially with Tony's case, and I'm sure with a lot of parents' cases, it's more that you notice it too late. Like there's probably plenty of opportunities where Tony was too busy. And I mean, we see in this episode, he doesn't show up for his swim meet, kind of in a weird revenge way, but there's probably plenty of opportunities where AJ wanted to spend time with his dad, but he couldn't. And now it's like a personal thing for poor Tony.
Yeah, now he's like, oh, that's over. It's gone.
Yeah.
And then he does bring up how he might be going away for a while. And Jim, you know what happens next, right?
Not yet, I don't think. Is that this moment or is that later?
It's later. You're right.
Yeah, not yet. Almost.
I was excited there for a moment.
Yeah, I mean,
but anyway, she does say, "I've never seen you like this. I've never seen you scared." That's how we finish up on this scene, which is real. I mean, that's true.
Because Tony keeps having those moments where it does almost seem like he is going to storm out. Because, I mean, he's also doing the thing of like, they're going to put me away for a long time for something I didn't even do.
Yeah, of course.
And in a weird way, I do think like he's like convinced himself that he's a victim here and that they're just coming after him unfairly, even though he knows he did it.
Mhm.
And then, we see Melfi kind of recoiling in like fear a few times because all of a sudden he'll start going, these motherfuckers, these motherfuckers. He's just yelling about it.
Yeah.
But she still, she pushes him a little bit and does, mention like, I've never seen you scared before.
Yeah.
And we see that throughout some other scenes with Tony as well.
She keeps it together and keeps it more professional than we've seen from her recently. Does a fairly good job of it, considering that she's talking to a murderer and everything. And what else was I thinking of? I'm sure it'll pop into my head at an inopportune moment. Let's go to the next scene.
And the next scene, I believe, that's back at the sporting. Like it keeps going back. They're just hanging out at the sporting goods store, and Paulie shows up, and still no info on the witness yet. And Tony's getting a little bit more erratic. And then Paulie's like, saying he's gonna take care of it. Small bump in the road. Then when Paulie leaves, he finds David is sleeping in the tent, and they kind of have like a little reminiscing until
Don't fucking reminisce with me like
Yeah.
I was doing with you.
Exactly, because Tony brings up, just hey, remember when you could transfer? You're an army brat, and then David pulls a story when he actually helped Tony, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, and here you are ruining me, and he's like, well, don't fucking let's not play down memory lane. And David has to ask like, what's going on? Where does this end? And the clear thing is bankruptcy.
Which
And-
is so clear, but it's got to be like he's a gambler. He doesn't think ahead. He lives in the moment. But yeah, he just starts crying.
Yes, yeah, he starts crying, and I understand. Like Tony's thing is Tony's facing potential life in prison, so to him, this is nothing. And plus, what he's saying is true. Like, yeah, you can declare bankruptcy and you could build your life back up, but it's easier said than done. Plus, it's all relative because you are essentially ending his life. It's going to destroy his family. It's destroying his livelihood. But it's still not as bad as facing a potential life sentence in jail.
Yeah, and in this scene again, we get them asking on screen questions we have been asking previously because he asks, "Why did you let me into that game?" And like, you didn't want me to do it. And we get to see him realize like, yeah, I was a fucking idiot. I'm reaching the bottom right now, and Tony didn't want me to do it. Like, maybe if he was just like, yeah, come join the game, gamble your life away. But then it's like, well, if you didn't want me to do this, why did you do it? And Tony actually brings up the fable of the frog and the scorpion. It says it's in my nature, which is good.
Yeah, it makes sense because I do, and I think we went over this, but I do think Tony would have let him leave, like when he told him not to do it. But when the guy keeps pushing, and like he even says, like, I knew you had this business, so at the end of the day, I knew I could let you in, and we could come out. This is what the ending would be.
Yeah.
And I mean, what does he say? Like, hey, if you had won, I'd be the one crying the blues. And it's like, I don't think so.
No, I think he'd be fine. And then we get the biggest reveal of the episode. AJ can swim. I keep underestimating this guy. He's not only swimming, he's going pretty fast. I mean, just judging from his belly flop earlier in the episode, I did not think he was on like a team, but I guess so. He almost came second even.
Almost came in second. I mean, and that's much better than I would have expected him to do. So, hey, good for you.
Yes.
Tony misses it because he is meeting up with his lawyer to leave some seed money in case he has to lamb it for Carmilla. But he can't really just say that because he doesn't want, he even told AJ earlier, like, don't tell your mother about this. He doesn't want Carmilla freaking out. So she's none the wiser of the potential of what's happening here. But she still is completely right when Tony shows up home and he sends AJ to bed, and she's like, you weren't, one night, like 2 nights ago, you're telling me you want to spend time with AJ, and now you're acting like a 6-year-old because you skipped his swim meet and you don't feel bad about it because he went to the mall without you.
Yes. And it leads to it's an intense fight for them. They're pretty passive aggressive or even regular aggressive sometimes, but not actually physically aggressive. And she's so frustrated that she starts hitting him or hitting him with the magazines and actually coming at him, attacking him, managing to not really do any damage at all. Of course, Tony's a big bear of a guy. He's even like, what are you doing over here? And just tosses her aside.
Like he giggles about it because it's
Yes.
so surprising. He doesn't understand what's happening. And you know, they go like handheld, which is always a nice touch for something like this because it gets a little shaky cam and kind of feels like you're in the scene. And you're right, yeah, it's a quick amp up, and I guess you know because what we know with Carmela, because there's this, I think she does feel guilty a bit for this Vic character and the
Yeah.
thoughts she's having, and plus just in general, you know, AJ was pretty bummed out that Tony wasn't there, and Tony's just classic Tony not being there unless he
Yeah.
feels like.
And even though they don't always get along, I mean they actually got along really well at the end of last episode. But even though they don't usually do that, he's literally just like, "No, fuck you" to her.
Right, I forgot about that. Yeah, he goes, yeah, fuck you, right in her
Yeah,
face.
which is pretty harsh for like, I'm just complaining that you're mean to our son, and that's when she goes, "No, fuck you," and it all escalates, and she runs up the stairs, to AJ. And
Yes, and
yeah,
then,
then he drinks in the dark.
yeah, and Meadow arrives home later in the night, finds yeah, Tony sitting in the dark drinking. He's all disheveled and drunk.
Yeah.
And you know, she's got to get to the chat room.
Oh yeah, I gotta go online. I can relate.
It's funny because it is, I mean, it's not chat room obviously anymore, but it is the same shit. It's like I got to get on the internet. I just saw my friends, but now I got to get on my tablet or my phone and hang out with my friends still.
Well, she could just sit there with her phone and like, yeah, Dad. Oh yeah, what's it? Whatever you said, Dad.
And I really like this scene. I mean, because I've lived this scene so many times, not so much the Tony perspective, but the Meadow perspective, because I have parents that drank a lot. And I mean, I guess on one hand, it's like the inhibitions are gone and they're trying to make a connection with you. But when you're in the other position, it doesn't feel real because they're drunk.
Yeah.
And so it's like all of a sudden now it's like we have this discussion where it's like, I know it, you know, I love you, right? Everything I do for you and your brother, which is not true. It's clearly not true. I mean, he had the same freak out when it's like, everything I do, everything I will do is for this family. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's truth to it for sure. But also, Tony's very like a selfish sociopath, as we know.
Yes.
Uh, so, I mean, I guess it's a little both. But it's still kind of it's like a sweet, tender moment. And Meadow does kind of give him a bone a little bit because he starts going into how, you know, you're all me. Nothing gets by you. And I know you call me a hypocrite, but she cuts him off.
Yeah.
But then says, you know, hey, everyone's a little kind of a hypocrite sometimes.
Yeah. And that whole thing, I mentioned Better Call Saul earlier. It does remind me of Breaking Bad, where a huge part of the character was, I'm gonna keep saying over and over that I'm doing this for my family, even when that's clearly not the case. And it's kind of the same thing here. Did he shoot that kid for his family? Because he said everything he does, and no, he did that for himself. And I just remembered what I was going to say earlier, which was that we get that scene at the carousel with the kid calling for his mommy and him seeing the flash of the kid dying. And I think it adds to it a lot that this is something that he's actually a bit not torn up but conflicted about. If this was just like, shit, they saw us capping that other guy, or they saw us stealing the jewels, it wouldn't be the same that when he's sitting here like drinking and thinking about his family. He killed a young guy and he felt good about it, and then he felt weird about it, and he's still probably not completely like, fuck yeah, I did a great thing. And that's why he's sitting there with Melfi like, a thing I didn't do, and everything I do is for this family. It adds a lot to it.
Yes, yeah. It's very and it's kind of reminiscent of him discussing who should go to hell in the previous episode, where you know, kind of like the soldiers, you know, we're soldiers and we do that, like just kind of trying to defend it in his mind. And there is truth to it, but it's just interesting to see it play out more, because especially the way Sopranos is, usually things are kind of, they affect you know, other episodes, but this is like very tied to what happened and how things are playing out with Tony now.
Yes. Apart from this wallpaper guy who we're never going to see again, no, maybe. I don't know. It feels like it's pretty finished. The next scene is with the wallpaper guy, as Carmela wants to show him the smallest room, the powder room, Let's look at this. Oh, and I got to show you this poster on the back of my door. That old trick.
Oh, yeah.
We all pulled that one. Oh, yeah, the coolest poster's on the back of my door. Click. And then there's makeouts. It is weird because you had, a whole season with the priest and nothing ever came of it. And then it's fireworks.
The sparks fly. They're soulmates. And I mean, a couple quick details. She does have a red cooler. I think that she offers them at the beginning of the scene.
Yep.
Another thing, they are playing the song "Wheel in the Sky," which also plays during the end credits.
Yeah.
Song is done by the band Journey. And as we all know, this isn't really a spoiler, but for the big cut to black, like what our show is named after, Don't Stop Believing is playing by the band Journey. So it all ties in. I believe this was the seed right here, setting up the final moments.
Well, I didn't know that, but okay. It's not a spoiler. I'll take it. I'd play Journey over every episode if it was me, so I don't blame him at all. But even when they stop kissing, Carmela's not like, "Oh God, we shouldn't have done this." She's like, "Oh, I've never done this before," and he's like, "I should go."
Yeah, so the sparks fly. Yeah, he just takes off, and they're kind of like this moment. What are they going to do next? You got to wonder. But before we get to that, Junior is at home watching soap operas, drinking some Ramlosa. Richie comes in with some red coolers for him and some sneakers, I guess, that Junior's going to give to the kid that washes his car, or I forget. There's like a street kid that he wants to give the shoes to.
He does say black kid that washes my car, and that that poor prick wears a pair that's wrapped with duct tape, showing Junior in a new light. It's weird. It's both Richie and Junior. They kind of made, Junior made his play, but now he's a bit resigned. He's not like, fuck Tony, fuck this, fuck that. And maybe a part of him is even glad he didn't kill his nephew, because then he'd be the one seeing little kids going, "Mommy, mommy," and he'd think, "Oh, fuck, not only was that some weirdo, that was my nephew." So, and he's at home. He's just chilling. This court thing clearly never happening, so he seems to be doing all right for himself.
Yeah, it is nice. Like this whole season, we've seen a different Junior. I mean, we saw glimpses of it because even when he was in the process of making his move, it wasn't sitting right with him. He's like throwing up and hiding and very kind of concerned with what's going on. And now he's a little bit more self-aware. I mean, even to the point where Richie's talking about, Tony's got to go and we need to make a move. And he's doing all this stuff. Like he even took over your waste management business. Junior's still smart enough to be like, who I don't trust is that niece of mine. I walked out of my house with a lighter wallet. That was from a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah, which, Richie, even though last scene he was all, I'm old school and that, he's already there. He's already here with Junior saying, "Oh, we both know he's got to go. We both know he should have gone a year ago." And that's when Junior's like, is this Richie, the loyal, tough guy, old school guy talking, or is it Janice?
Yeah.
Really picking up on a lot of signals, very much unlike Junior in season 1, when everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you're the boss for sure."
Yeah, and plus, I guess maybe it helps because he had the original Janice Soprano, Livia Soprano, in his ear, so he's lived through this. He knows what's happening, and it's a lot easier to see it from the outside than from the inside.
Yeah.
So
Richie doesn't get a push in the direction of fuck Tony. He actually gets told to back off, which makes me feel like something's gonna happen to make, I don't know, Junior and Richie like they gotta go somewhere with this season. So something's gotta happen to change Junior's mind, because I don't think Richie's gonna go out on his own like fuck Tony, because he already did the jacket thing, and I cannot imagine a worse betrayal than that. And it's probably involving Livia Soprano. I know you can't comment. I'm just musing.
Yeah, it is great when in that previous scene when Janice gets him going, and then he brings up the jacket, and he's like, "When I think of that jacket," like. We do see Meadow going through her college applications, and what's this? A new option that's not Berkeley or Georgetown, but NYU, which will keep her nice in vicinity if she does decide. And then maybe season 3, we won't be seeing the last of Meadow Soprano.
Okay. Well, I was like, I was actually glad for her, which is weird. It's not weird, but it's just her opening letters and like fuck yeah, and then she has to go to her grandma watching a great commercial for how to make chocolate spaghetti, and sausages, and tell her all about these colleges she got accepted to, and yeah, we get to see Olivia actually like fuck them, they don't deserve you anyway. Here's the 20.
Yeah, it's like a nice real grandma moment, which is
Yeah.
kind of weird, but like, yeah, it's nice to see because usually Livia Soprano's up to no good, but it's just a real grandma moment, just kind of picking you back up, giving you $20 and being proud of you.
Yeah, which is fun. It's like we would have expected maybe a scene with Carmilla, but guess what? Carmilla's busy getting on the phone with Vic is his name, the wallpaperer, who's out in his car because he knows, oh, we got such chemistry, we can't even be trusted in the same room. And Carmilla's like, how about we trust ourselves in the same room for like all day, and also I make a sexy lunch. And he's like, oh yeah, that sounds great.
Yep. Yeah. Maybe you can send Ramon to the other job, and then you can come here. We can spend some time. We could talk. Oh, that'd be awesome. Meadow kind of walks up and is like, "Who's that?" It's like, "Oh, just the wallpaper man. Don't worry."
Yeah, it's nobody did nothing. And here's how face blind I am. Next scene, we have the witness sipping on some wine, reading a cool book about anarchy, the state, and the union. And there's a phone call, and like it was like half the scene before I was like, "Oh, that's not the wallpaper guy." And Christina, like I'm literally that bad apparently at faces that I was like, "Oh yeah, he sees about how in the paper." I'm an idiot. I cannot be trusted to tell these middle-aged people apart. Middle-aged is harsh.
Well, I mean, in your defense, we only see the guy real quick at the
Yeah.
very beginning of the episode. And yeah, he's reading Anarchy, State, and Utopia.
Yeah, which I looked up, and it says how it argues for a minimalist state because that is what arises from anarchy. And they're listening to the worst piano music.
Piano jazz or something like that. It's like some freestyle piano. Yeah, it's so well. It's great because they set this guy up already at the beginning as like a nerd, and I like how they're trying to make the average Joe kind of quote good guy yuppie or whatever, just a nerd. Because we even see that other one, like when that family and they try to sick their dog on the guys that steal their
This might as well be the same character.
Yeah, it's such a funny way to do that because we're always spending time with Tony Soprano. So when we see these regular people, they're either like pathetic like David or they're just this like phony nerd because his whole thing is he's done with crime. Like he's had it up for crime and he has to be a good person. But then once they find out that it's a Soprano family connection, he's like, that fucking detective, those lying pricks. Where's my phone? Which, but in their defense, you don't want to deal with being killed for being a potential witness against a mob boss in some world you have nothing to do with.
He thought it was like crack, and I guess again, Breaking Bad, you'd still get killed for like getting a crack deal. I guess maybe not crack, meth, yeah, whatever. But you're right. It's like, oh yeah, it's the scariest mob people, and this guy probably got killed for being a witness or something. So yeah. But as you mentioned, we don't get the average Joe perspective, and we make them wusses, which is why Vic, to us and Carmilla, is such a breath of fresh air, because in the next scene, he's also like, I'm just the best guy, because he comes to hang out with David at a bar. He finds out how David gambled everything away, and he's at first like, oh, we're going to take you to Gamblers Anonymous or whatever, and then he tries to pin it all on like, well, where were you last time? And
so annoying when he does that.
Yeah. Vic just behaves very reasonable through the whole thing. He says, I'm going to pay for your kids' education because you're a piece of shit and you gambled it all away. Oh, what a good guy. What a catch.
Yeah, because initially he's fully there to help David. He's like, we're going to get you in a meeting. We're going to get this situated. We're going to fix it. Until he starts realizing like the enormity of the situation and just how bad David fucked everything up. But yeah, still a good guy. Okay, well, I'm going to pay for Eric got into Georgetown. You wouldn't know that, you piece of shit. But I'm going to pay for that kid's education. I'm going to take care of my family, unlike what stupid David does. And then he also David points out the way he's able to lose everything is because I got involved with Tony Soprano. I got involved with the wrong people. and they're like fucking locusts. They come in and like just suck everything dry. And it's interesting the way this whole episode plays out is Tony is, obviously afraid of this witness and what's going to happen to him. And kind of by dumb luck, he gets out of it. And then similar with this situation with Vic and Carmilla, again, just out of dumb luck, being Tony Soprano. In both cases, just being Tony Soprano, save him. He doesn't have to do anything. And it's kind of great because it's this weird, like, things work out even for terrible people, or maybe even more for terrible people. But I love that they have that play out through this episode.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's even like, it's exactly like he said in the previous episode when he's like, we don't got to look for this kid. Someone will just bring him to us because we're us. We're the best. And yeah, you're right. He just gets a call and from Polly Walnut saying how, it's something that didn't happen, that we know didn't happen. And the guy who didn't saw it, but I realize now he didn't see it because it didn't happen. And Tony's, he goes off. Does he go to the powder room? Is that where he is?
Yes, he goes into the wallpapered bathroom where Carmilla would kiss that guy, and he like cries in happiness that like he kind of just has a nice little cry that like I get a second chance. It's just I love this idea. I love this idea that it just works out for him because he's a shitty person. Like him being really shitty to David saves like the idea of his wife cheating on him, even if she's completely within her rights, the way Tony's been like disloyal in their marriage, but it just saves him because he's shitty.
Yes. And I mean, I guess maybe that's why that whole scene in the bar, I expected Vic to find out something about Tony that would make him not do this, because they had the whole scene of like, oh, we're gonna send Raul to the other place and you send you to my place, and then I expect there to be a scene where it's like, no, that's not happening, and it came right after the scene where that actually happened. So then we're with Melfi again, and he's relieved.
And I like this too because Tony's being honest, where he's like, I don't know what happened. The witness just decided not to go ahead. But it's the same exact thing he would say if he did just hunt down this person and murder them.
Yes.
And Melfi is rightfully like, oh, okay, you don't know what happened. And then Tony's like hurt. He's like,
yeah, what do you think of me? Yeah. That I would do exactly this thing that I've done 100 times? And he actually brings up another thing we've discussed previously. When he went to Italy, met someone who reminded him of Melfi, and he says it to her. And like said, I'm my own worst enemy. And she's like, isn't that kind of a cliche? Critiquing the writing of this show. And Tony's like, oh, no, you had to be there. Just like with you and me when I say, oh, yeah, he went into the powder room, huh? It's like, yeah, but if you see it in the show, it's great. It's not a coincidence. I mean, it all pans out. It's perfect. And she's a witch as well.
Yeah, I like
witchy broads.
He keeps trying to weirdly defend her because he's like a little bummed that she's kind of like, well, is that a cliche? Isn't that? And he's like, well, no, I mean, I guess she had to be there. Like, yeah, they're like witchy people, they think a certain way. It's an ancient culture. And then what happens?
Well, let's see. Yeah, and he does say he wanted to fuck her as well, which is great. After you say you reminded me of someone that I wanted to fuck. But anyway, the reason he brings this up is that he keeps going on about I bring all this on myself, which is the same thing that you're telling me. And then what does happen?
Well, he says a line. I don't need any more psychiatry today.
Yeah.
And he gets up and he fucking I mean, he doesn't necessarily storm out, but this is a walkout, is it not?
It is. No, absolutely. Let's count it.
All right. I wasn't sure if there was going to be some controversy here, but I think we're in full agreement. Let's add it to the counter.
Yes.
Fuck you.
It's a bit more relaxed than that. Maybe we need a new sounder where he's just like, I don't think I need any more therapy today. Good.
Yeah, maybe we just take that line from this episode. He goes, I don't need any more psychiatry today.
Yeah, that is actually a great line. So the thing she says right before is, the question is, how do you stop? Because he was talking about how he brings it all on himself. And that's when he's kind of like, you know what? I already did stop because I'm fine right now. And it is it's interesting because we've certainly never seen this before.
Well, and plus, in a way, the episode proves him right because, like we're just saying, like him bringing it on himself is also what saved him in a weird way. So, because I mean, I guess obviously he kind of gets up because he's in a good mood and he doesn't want to think about what he should be doing differently or look inside himself and what type of person he is. And maybe, maybe there's thoughts in his head that maybe he shouldn't have gotten off for this. And maybe a part of him, wants to be punished or caught. But hey, no, I'm in a good mood. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to get up and walk out.
So explain the next scene to me, Jim.
This one is interesting. I think it's an extension of that because he goes to see Beansy. And I guess is no, he did go see him when he was like in the hospital bed as well. Cause I was going to say if this is the first time he saw him or not, but yeah, he goes to see Beansy and he gives him 50 grand and it's an extension because he's in this good mood still. And I guess he feels like he's going to go like make more wrongs right or something. And Beansy doesn't want it. Like, oh, what do you think? I'm some dumb cripple that's never going to walk again. And you think I'm the poster boy for this? And Tony doesn't care about any of that. It's like, just take this money because it's not about you. It's about me.
Yes.
Because I love the shot of Tony Soprano walking away. He's so fucking proud of himself and he's so happy when he didn't really do anything.
Yeah, he says, hey, my idea was you could donate to the Spinal Injury Foundation. And he's like, I'm going to walk again. And he's like, yeah, but in the meantime, you can donate to the Spinal Injury Foundation. And it's you're right. It's probably an extension. Well, at first I thought maybe it was also like I should have gotten caught. I did a bad thing. Like I'm feeling a bit of karma here. I'm gonna give back. But it's like you said, it's completely selfish. It's just like, yeah, I'm just the best. I'm just Tony Sopranos. I've been feeling like I'm the worst. I'll do something that makes me feel like I'm the best.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you're right in that thinking as well. It is an extension of like, I got away with something bad and here's my way of making it right. But even though we know like Tony would not give 50 grand if it was important to him or if he needed it for something, you know what I mean? Like it's because he was just ready to give like 450 grand and just leave it in an office somewhere for Carmilla. Like at this point, when everything worked out for him, it's all gravy. So yeah, I can hand out 50 grand and give it to Beansy, and he doesn't care if Beansy just keeps it or if he donates it, whatever. To him, it's a good thing, and it's like all is right in the universe.
Yes. So a quick scene with Carmilla preparing her romantic lunch. She's got the picnic basket out with wine, and she was talking to Christine earlier about how when you start going out, it's all wine and romantic meals, and now she's recreating that by chopping stuff up really nicely, fixing that chicken up, get your apron off, fluff your hair, and who's there? It's not Vic.
Yeah, Ramon shows up. Vic had to go to the other job. And
your husband's a murderer, so
destroys people. And also it's kind of like he's faced the reality of dealing with the Sopranos family with David, and plus it's also, if these people have self-respect, even like David's wife, you wouldn't then associate yourself at all with the Soprano family. Even if it's David's fault, they still are taking advantage. So
yes, that's true. And we do get to see the shop closing up, which, it's not that one's not really a scene. It's just kind of bookending this chapter of us hanging out in this store, because what's more important is we got the boat. We got Tony and AJ on that boat for some nice seafaring shots where he gets to steer. And Tony really likes to fuck with AJ, like, come on, kill the spider. It's a leaf, you fucking idiot. He's like the best dad ever. And he really is like, oh, you want to steer the boat? I don't know. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. And they're on the Stugats. And I guess it's kind of like a microcosm of the whole episode where we're seeing like, the Soprano family doing whatever they want, destroying everyone's destroying other people's lives. We
Yes.
see in this small moment where, okay, well, AJ, you can't just steer the boat. We need to open this bitch up and see how fast it can go while you're steering. Even after you just tried to tell him like, this isn't like a car, you can't just slam on the brakes. You got to be like anticipate. And then of course they speed up and they knock some guys over in a like a fishing canoe or whatever they're in.
No, you're right. That's a great point. That's such a great ending for this episode because that's exactly what's been done to everyone else in this episode. Where, like you said, they're on their boat, man, and they don't even notice when those people fall off their smaller boat. They're just smiling at the horizon and chasing that shit.
Yeah, having that nice father-son moment.
Yeah. So, Bust Out. They really did bust it out. It was a good episode. Do you have any thoughts on Bust Out or upcoming episodes? Please do email them to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. You would also very much help us out if you left a review on the Cut to Black podcast feed, which you'll find on your podcast app of choice or iTunes. That's where we would like to get some reviews in. Please, it would really help us out there. There's also showswhatyouknow.com where you got all of our array of shows. Want to talk about Westworld now that it's all over? We got a bunch of episodes on that. Of course, Handmaid's Tale is still going on. It's an extremely good show if you haven't checked it out. And what else, Jim?
Oh my God. You can find more from me at jimandthem.com, all kinds of non-TV needs. And you can also find more from Jakob at awesomepedia.org. Again, all kinds of non-TV needs, but plenty of content either way. But the most important thing is just one more thing.
Oh, what's that?
Cut to Black.